Section 38 of After Dark. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. After Dark by Wilkie Collins. The Professor's Story of the Yellow Mask. Part First, Chapter 3. From the studio, Father Rocco went straight to his own rooms, hard by the church to which he was attached. Opening a cabinet in his study, he took from one of its drawers a handful of small silver money, consulted for a minute or so a slate on which several names and addresses were written, provided himself with a portable inkhorn and some strips of paper, and again went out. He directed his steps to the poorest part of the neighborhood, and entering some very wretched houses, was greeted by the inhabitants with great respect and affection. The women, especially, kissed his hands with more reverence than they would have shown to the highest crowned head in Europe. In return, he talked to them as easily and unconstrainedly as if they were his equals, sat down cheerfully on dirty bedsides and rickety benches, and distributed his little gifts of money with the air of a man who was paying debts rather than bestowing charity. Where he encountered cases of illness, he pulled out his inkhorn and slips of paper and wrote simple prescriptions to be made up from the medicine chest of a neighboring convent, which served the same merciful purpose then that is answered by dispensaries in our own days. When he had exhausted his money, and had got through his visits, he was escorted out of the poor quarter by a perfect train of enthusiastic followers. The women kissed his hand again, and the men uncovered as he turned, and with a friendly sign bade them all farewell. As soon as he was alone again, he walked toward the Campo Santo, and, passing the house in which Nanina lived, sauntered up and down the street thoughtfully for some minutes. When he at length ascended the steep staircase that led to the room occupied by the sisters, he found the door ajar. Pushing it open gently, he saw La Biondella sitting with her pretty fair profile turned towards him, eating her evening meal of bread and grapes. At the opposite end of the room Scaramuccia was perched up on his hindquarters in a corner, with his mouth wide open to catch a morsel of bread which he evidently expected the child to throw to him. What the elder sister was doing, the priest had not time to see, for the dog barked the moment he presented himself, and Nanina hastened to the door to ascertain who the intruder might be. All that he could observe was that she was too confused, on catching sight of him, to be able to utter a word. La Biondella was the first to speak. "Thank you, Father Rocco," said the child, jumping up with her bread in one hand and her grapes in the other. "Thank you for giving me so much money for my dinner mats. There they are, tied up together in one little parcel, in the corner. Nanina said she was ashamed to think of your carrying them, and I said I knew where you lived, and I should like to ask you to let me take them home." "Do you think you can carry them all the way, my dear?" asked the priest. "Look, Father Rocco, see if I can't carry them," cried La Biondella, cramming her bread into one of the pockets of her little apron, holding her bunch of grapes by the stalk in her mouth, and hoisting the packet of dinner mats on her head in a moment. "See, I am strong enough to carry double," said the child, looking up proudly into the priest's face. "Can you trust her to take them home for me?" asked Father Rocco, turning to Nanina. "I want to speak to you alone, and her absence will give me the opportunity. Can you trust her out by herself?" "Yes, Father Rocco, she often goes out alone." Nanina gave this answer in low, trembling tones, and looked down confusedly on the ground. "Go then, my dear," said Father Rocco, patting the child on the shoulder, "and come back here to your sister as soon as you have left the mats." La Biondella went out directly in great triumph, with Scaramuccia walking by her side, and keeping his muzzle suspiciously close to the pocket in which she had put her bread. Father Rocco closed the door after them, and then, taking the one chair which the room possessed, motioned to Nanina to sit by him on the stool. "Do you believe that I am your friend, my child, and that I have always meant well toward you?" he began. "The best and kindest of friends," answered Nanina. "Then you will hear what I have to say patiently, and you will believe that I am speaking for your good, even if my words should distress you." Nanina turned away her head. "Now tell me, should I be wrong, to begin with, if I said that my brother's pupil, the young nobleman whom we call Signor Fabio, had been here to see you to-day?" Nanina started up affrightedly from her stool. "Sit down again, my child. I am not going to blame you. I am only going to tell you what you must do for the future." He took her hand. It was cold, and it trembled violently in his. "I will not ask what he has been saying to you," continued the priest, "for it might distress you to answer, and I have, moreover, had means of knowing that your youth and beauty have made a strong impression on him. I will pass over, then, all reference to the words he may have been speaking to you, and I will come at once to what I have now to say in my turn. Nanina, my child, arm yourself with all your courage, and promise me, before we part to-night, that you will see Signor Fabio no more." Nanina turned round suddenly, and fixed her eyes on him with an expression of terrified incredulity. "No more?" "You are very young and very innocent," said Father Rocco, "but surely you must have thought before now of the difference between Signor Fabio and you. Surely you must have often remembered that you are low down among the ranks of the poor, and that he is high up among the rich and the nobly born." Nanina's hands dropped on the priest's knees. She bent her head down on them, and began to weep bitterly. "Surely you must have thought of that," reiterated Father Rocco. "Oh, I have often, often thought of it," murmured the girl. "I have mourned over it, and cried about it in secret for many nights past. He said I looked pale and ill and out of spirits to-day, and I told him it was with thinking of that." "And what did he say in return?" There was no answer. Father Rocco looked down. Nanina raised her head directly from his knees, and tried to turn it away again. He took her hand and stopped her. "Come," he said, "speak frankly to me. Say what you ought to say to your father and your friend. What was his answer, my child, when you reminded him of the difference between you?" "He said I was born to be a lady," faltered the girl, still struggling to turn her face away, "and that I might make myself one if I would learn and be patient. He said that if he had all the noble ladies in Pisa to choose from on one side, and only little Nanina on the other, he would hold out his hand to me, and tell them, 'This shall be my wife.' He said love knew no difference of rank, and that if he was a nobleman and rich, it was all the more reason why he should please himself. He was so kind that I thought my heart would burst while he was speaking, and my little sister liked him so that she got upon his knee and kissed him. Even our dog, who growls at other strangers, stole to his side and licked his hand. Oh, Father Rocco! Father Rocco!" The tears burst out afresh, and the lovely head dropped once more, wearily, on the priest's knee. Father Rocco smiled to himself, and waited to speak again until she was calmer. "Supposing," he resumed, after some minutes of silence, "supposing Signor Fabio really meant all he said to you." Nanina started up, and confronted the priest boldly for the first time since he had entered the room. "Supposing!" she exclaimed, her cheeks beginning to redden, and her dark blue eyes flashing suddenly through her tears. "Supposing! Father Rocco, Fabio would never deceive me. I would die here at your feet rather than doubt the least word he said to me." The priest signed to her quietly to return to the stool. "I never suspected the child had so much spirit in her," he thought to himself. "I would die," repeated Nanina, in a voice that began to falter now. "I would die rather than doubt him." "I will not ask you to doubt him," said Father Rocco, gently, "and I will believe in him myself as firmly as you do. Let us suppose, my child, that you have learned patiently all the many things of which you are now ignorant, and which it is necessary for a lady to know. Let us suppose that Signor Fabio has really violated all the laws that govern people in his high station, and has taken you to him publicly as his wife. You would be happy then, Nanina. But would he? He has no father or mother to control him, it is true, but he has friends, many friends and intimates of his own rank, proud, heartless people, who know nothing of your worth and goodness, who, hearing of your low birth, will look on you, and on your husband too, my child, with contempt. He has not your patience and fortitude. Think how bitter it would be for him to bear that contempt, to see you shunned by proud women, and carelessly pitied or patronized by insolent men. Yet all this, and more, he would have to endure, or else to quit the world he has lived in from his boyhood, the world he was born to live in. You love him, I know." Nanina's tears burst out afresh. "Oh, how dearly, how dearly!" she murmured. "Yes, you love him dearly," continued the priest. "But would all your love compensate him for everything else that he must lose? It might at first, but there would come a time when the world would assert its influence over him again, when he would feel a want which you could not supply, a weariness which you could not solace. Think of his life then, and of yours. Think of the first day when the first secret doubt whether he had done rightly in marrying you would steal into his mind. We are not masters of all our impulses. The lightest spirits have their moments of irresistible depression. The bravest hearts are not always superior to doubt. My child, the world is strong, the pride of rank is rooted deep, and the human will is frail at best. Be warned. For your own sake and for Fabio's, be warned in time." Nanina stretched out her hands towards the priest in despair. "Oh, Father Rocco, Father Rocco!" she cried. "Why did you not tell me this before?" "Because, my child, I only knew of the necessity for telling you to-day. But it is not too late. It is never too late to do a good action. You love Fabio, Nanina? Will you prove that love by making a great sacrifice for his good?" "I would die for his good." "Will you nobly cure him of a passion which will be his ruin, if not yours, by leaving Pisa to-morrow?" "Leave Pisa?" exclaimed Nanina. Her face grew deadly pale. She rose and moved back a step or two from the priest. "Listen to me," pursued Father Rocco. "I have heard you complain that you could not get regular employment at needlework. You shall have that employment if you will go with me, you and your little sister too, of course, to Florence to-morrow." "I promised Fabio to go to the studio," began Nanina, affrightedly. "I promised to go at 10 o'clock. How can I?" She stopped suddenly, as if her breath were failing her. "I myself will take you and your sister to Florence," said Father Rocco, without noticing the interruption. "I will place you under the care of a lady who will be as kind as a mother to you both. I will answer for your getting such work to do as will enable you to keep yourself honestly and independently, and I will undertake, if you do not like your life at Florence, to bring you back to Pisa after a lapse of 3 months only. 3 months, Nanina. It is not a long exile." "Fabio, Fabio!" cried the girl, sinking again on the seat, and hiding her face. "It is for his good," said Father Rocco, calmly. "For Fabio's good, remember." "What would he think of me if I went away? Oh, if I had but learned to write! If I could only write Fabio a letter!" "Am I not to be depended on to explain to him all that he ought to know?" "How can I go away from him? Oh, Father Rocco, how can you ask me to go away from him?" "I will ask you to do nothing hastily. I will leave you till to-morrow morning to decide. At 9 o'clock I shall be in the street, and I will not even so much as enter this house, unless I know beforehand that you have resolved to follow my advice. Give me a sign from your window. If I see you wave your white mantilla out of it, I shall know that you have taken the noble resolution to save Fabio and to save yourself. I will say no more, my child, for, unless I am grievously mistaken in you, I have already said enough." He went out, leaving her still weeping bitterly. Not far from the house he met La Biondella and the dog on their way back. The little girl stopped to report to him the safe delivery of her dinner mats, but he passed on quickly with a nod and a smile. His interview with Nanina had left some influence behind it, which unfitted him just then for the occupation of talking to a child. Nearly half an hour before 9 o'clock on the following morning, Father Rocco set forth for the street in which Nanina lived. On his way thither he overtook a dog walking lazily a few paces ahead in the roadway, and saw, at the same time, an elegantly dressed lady advancing toward him. The dog stopped suspiciously as she approached, and growled and showed his teeth when she passed him. The lady, on her side, uttered an exclamation of disgust, but did not seem to be either astonished or frightened by the animal's threatening attitude. Father Rocco looked after her with some curiosity as she walked by him. She was a handsome woman, and he admired her courage. "I know that growling brute well enough," he said to himself. "But who can that lady be?" The dog was Scarammuccia, returning from one of his marauding expeditions. The lady was Brigida, on her way to Luca Lomi's studio. Some minutes before 9 o'clock the priest took his post in the street, opposite Nanina's window. It was open, but neither she nor her little sister appeared at it. He looked up anxiously as the church clock struck the hour, but there was no sign for a minute or so after they were all silent. "Is she hesitating still?" said Father Rocco to himself. Just as the words passed his lips, the white mantilla was waved out of the window. End of Section 38. Recording by Todd.